Welcome to our 10th, you heard that right, 10th episode of Failure is Progress, presented by Sweat Factory CrossFit. We are your coaches, Keith and Frankie. We are excited to announce that we are just 4 days away from our deadline for the Festivus Games presented by Sweet Cups Chef. So 4 days away, October 14th is the deadline. The competition is happening on Saturday, October 21st at both Rockledge and Claremont locations. We're excited to see you guys there. Come by and check out our booth. We'll have some t-shirts, a few other little goodies. Keith, let's get right into this episode. This is one that we have debated in the past, and it's become my new favorite topic, right? The CrossFit favorite topics is Matt Fraser or Rich Froning the best in the world? And the other topic is, does your programming suck, right? or your programming sucks. And it seems like the more I get into CrossFit, the more I hear about this. Everyone seems to just complain about their programming all around. And I thought it would be an interesting topic because we did talk about the competition team in the last podcast, and you talked about your programming insights a little bit. But I wanted to see if you have any idea how Level Method, which is our preferred programming company, we'll call them, if you have any insight into how they do their programming, and then we'll go from there.
So we, as coaches, do have access to their podcast as well as their, they do these overviews every week that we can actually print out and have if we would like it. So I have some insight into what the overviews are and how they do their programming. They have a systematic approach to it where they cycle through different elements of fitness.
Right.
They call them plumbing, ventilation, and electricity, and they cycle through those along with their assessments to try and obviously increase our fitness. And I think that's an important thing to note because all of these programs, the point of the program is to increase our fitness.
Correct. I think the reason why I wanted to talk about this specifically, and I'm a little off put by the conversations that I'm hearing in some of the gyms about programming is, we have this idea that there's always something out there that we want. And for whatever reason, what we have isn't going to get it for us, right? Mm-hmm. I know that before I got into coaching, I had a conversation with you and I said, hey, I don't think that this programming is necessarily working for me. I feel like something's missing. And when you questioned me and you said, what are you basing your response on? Why are you saying that you're not progressing? I really didn't have much of a leg to stand on. And it made me kind of think really hard on why I was even saying it. And I think that specific day, I just had a bad workout and I wasn't feeling great. But when I really sat back and looked at it, we have really good tools for measuring our progress. And our progress is based on Level Method's, way of programming. If we were to have any other programming, whatever it may be, I think we're on the same boat, right? It would work. If we decided that we wanted to do any programming on the planet.
Yeah, we could do Proven, HWPO, CompTrain, Invictus. I mean, you can name all the top training camps and they're all probably going to get you results.
Right. So what is it that makes someone say that they aren't getting progress out of the programming? I'm not going to say out of our program, out of programming. What is a typical thing that you've seen in your experience that makes someone say, you know what, this isn't working for me?
Yeah, in my opinion, it's usually two things. When people say that their programming isn't working, it's either one, there are things that they enjoy doing that they feel like they don't get a chance to do often enough. So like, say, for instance, you really enjoy walking lunges, but you've only done walking lunges once in the last 2 months. You're like, man, this programming sucks. Not realizing that it's not the programming sucking. It's just that you don't get to do the things that you like to do often enough.
Okay.
And I mean, that can be, if you're only looking at it through that subjective lens of the programming being fun, then yeah, I can see why you're saying that the program sucks. It's not because it doesn't get results, it's just not fun. So if that's the only thing we're measuring programming off of, then that is a valid opinion that your programming sucks.
Yeah, and pretty much going back to all the different ones you listed, none of them are fun, right?
Yeah,
They're all based on results for specific things. And
for sure.
I mean, for the majority of it, they're all just trying to get us fitter. Unless you're targeting something very specific. So, for
Mhm.
example, our competition team, which is very specific, we're working out to try to target specific competitions that are coming up for individuals in the competition team. And then the rest of us are just along for the ride as we go from one competition to the next.
For sure.
But for the most part, what would be the main thing that we should focus on when wanting to get progress out of any programming?
Well, hang on to that question real quick. Don't forget that because I'm going to come back to it. The second thing that, going back to your first question about why people usually say that they're not seeing progress, is they're valuing certain things that they're not seeing progress in. For instance, if you are really into the weightlifting stuff, but none of your weightlifting numbers, not even none of them, just the ones that you really like let's say you really like deadlifts or you really like back squats, and those particular numbers haven't moved, but maybe you put an extra kilo or an extra 2 pounds on your front squat or your clean or your jerk or something like that. But you're not really paying attention to that because those aren't the things that you value. You value deadlifts, you value back squats, but those numbers aren't moving. So then you're like, oh, this program sucks. My back squat hasn't gone up in 6 months. And it's like, yeah, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're not getting stronger because there are other metrics of that. So usually those are the two things that people say that the programming sucks, is either they're not having enough fun or the things that they value, they're not seeing progress in.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. And then the question that I asked after that,
Mhm.
which was, what is the key component that we have to use when looking at this programming and whether or not it is effective? Like what can each and every athlete do to make sure that any programming works for them?
Um, the one thing that I would say you need to look at, as far as if we're only looking at programming, forgetting all the other factors that go into actually making progress, which there are a ton of, but if we're only looking at programming, we just need to make sure that we're assessing, which Level Method does very, very well. Is they have specific assessments to measure whether or not you are actually making progress in your specific areas. So that's the main thing that I would say as far as programming goes. Like this month, we have our rowing assessment coming up. Not all, most of the extra credits have been geared in some form or fashion towards um, getting better at rowing
Yeah.
or increasing your aerobic capacity.
Yeah. And going back to what you were saying about, if it's what we like, I do remember when you said deadlift, when I told you that I wasn't seeing progress, there was a specific point where we were doing deadlifting nonstop. We were deadlifting every week for a month or two. And then we stopped deadlifting. And I said, I don't understand this programming too much because it feels like I deadlift nonstop and then we just give up on deadlifting altogether for a certain period of time. And you said, well, how do you know that that's not part of the programming? That is the cycle that you're in at that point. Then you move on to the next cycle. There are still kettlebell swings that we may be doing for that period where we're not specifically deadlifting. So we may be getting stronger at deadlifting without deadlifting. And that was one of the things that you said that really kind of opened me up to the idea that I was full of it and the programming was working, right? The other thing that I will add, to the question that I asked you, I'll answer it as well. For me, it's consistency. It really doesn't matter, and you've gotten me really big on this. The consistency aspect, it doesn't really matter what the programming is. What matters is how consistent you are.
For
If you
sure.
show up to the gym 5 days this week, and then next week you only come in once, and the following week you're in 3 days, and then you start doing like 2 days every week, your consistency is dropping off. Your performance is going to drop off.
And you're also mixing in, maybe other workouts during that time that aren't geared toward the specific program. Like, let's say you only came into the gym this week, but then
Yeah,
you did 2 other days that were like 45-minute beat downs. You know what I mean? Like, that's probably hindering your progress more than the actual program. So not only consistency in getting in the gym, but consistency in whatever program is trying to achieve the goals that you're looking for.
agreed, agreed. Is there anything specific that you hear often about programming that really gets under your skin? Like anything very specific that you hear people say?
Nothing that bothers me too much. I will say the one that I hear the most often is I'm not getting stronger on this program. That one just more or less confuses me because whether or not you're getting stronger isn't going to be determined by your program. That's going to be determined on how much effort you're giving to get stronger. So when we have, if your goal is to get stronger, and we have metcons like today, we had the dumbbell
Single arm dumbbell
single,
thrusters,
yep, that one, and we had some
burpees.
burpees and some shuttle runs. If you just stick with the same weight that you always use, you're never trying to push the envelope a little bit more. I mean, 6 reps per arm isn't really that many reps if you're talking about per arm.
Right.
Obviously, you still have the 16 total squats, or excuse me, 12 total squats, or how many ever it was. But if you're not pushing the envelope there, or you're always sticking with the same kind of weights that you can do unbroken, essentially, then yeah, you're probably not going to get stronger. You're going to get very fit. You're going to be able to do more work per time unit, but you're probably not going to increase your strength a ton. Things need to be heavy to get stronger, period. So if you're never
Yeah,
lifting anything heavy, then you're right. You're not getting stronger. But that has nothing to do with the program.
understood. And let's talk a little bit about, I keep hearing people talk about cycles, right?
Mhm.
I know that in the lifting space, there's specific cycles. And I think we talked a little bit about this with the comp team conversation we had last time, but I really want to understand this better. And maybe you can give me some insight as to how the body responds to this, why we do it this way. But what exactly are cycles in reference to programming?
That's a that's a deep question, brother. So I'm not even sure where to start with this, but I'll do my best. So there are 3 kind of views, if you will, of cycles. We have our macro cycle, which is our entire program plan. Usually it's anywhere from 12 to 16 weeks. Then we have our microcycles, which are the smallest view, where usually it's either from a couple of days to like an actual full week of programming. And then we have our mesocycles. So those are kind of our medium views. So that's like a 4 week interval or a 4 to 6 week interval.
Okay.
So those are kind of our 3 views of how to zoom in and zoom out on programming, which can be another reason that people think that their programming isn't working. If you're zooming in too far, like if you're only looking at a 1 week span and you're like, oh, I didn't do snatches this week, programming is crap. It's like, well, hang on, let's zoom out a little bit. Let's look at a full 12-week cycle, and you'll see the 6 weeks where you actually did snatches and tried to improve in your technique or get stronger, whatever the case is. It just wasn't in that. It just didn't happen to be in that 1 week that you looked at.
Right.
So as far as that goes, that's kind of how we view our programming cycles. Now that can get way more in depth with whether you're trying to go for more like hypertrophy cycles, or if we're talking about more aerobic or talking about strength building. That's a whole another conversation.
Yeah. Understood. Here's another question for you. Being our I'm gonna call you our head coach for all the gyms, right? You're in charge of the coaching development for us. Do you think that as coaches we're doing a good enough job of showing our athletes what their progress looks like? And if we're not, how do you suggest we could?
Like I mentioned before, I think Level Method does a really good job with that, with the assessments that they have every month. Um, I do think, and myself included, we could probably do a better job of individually celebrating with people when they do their level ups. Maybe going to that person and be like, man, you worked really hard. Like, I remember you doing said drill, or I remember you doing this during this workout, or something like that, to help them realize that this wasn't a fluke. This was actually
Right.
something that you actually worked for, and now you're leveling up. This wasn't just didn't happen by accident, even if it, like you mentioned earlier, even if it was just because they've been consistent. Chris Romani, I got to give him a shout out, but he has been super consistent in the gym, and he went from not being able to do lunges unassisted at all, like without holding onto the rig, to the other day he did a whole workout, and it may not seem like a big deal, but he did the entire workout unassisted, did walking lunges, and he crushed the workout. So it was
That's
like those
awesome.
kind of moments, we probably just need to be better about recognizing them and then celebrating those on an individual level. I think we do a good job of taking the pictures and shouting people out on the Facebook group, and that's really cool. And it kind of brings the community together to say, hey, look at what we are doing as a community. But then that little cherry on top of saying, hey, I see you doing this, I think would probably go the extra mile.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think me personally, like I've never had one of our athletes ring the bell at the gym, which
Mm,
is something that, we have in a few of the gyms, and every time you hit a PR or do something out of the ordinary, should go and ring that bell. I think you made me ring it when I did the rope climbs the other day for the first time.
sure did.
But I think there's a lot of self-actualization that needs to happen from every individual person who comes into these gyms. You're going to get the most out of it if you're putting the most into it. That's
Absolutely.
really how it works. Speaking of getting stronger, I went through that period too, and I started trying to mix things up with my training. Way before I was coaching, I started coming to the classes with Jake at 8:30. I've done just about every single class. I've done 5 a.m., 6 a.m. I've done 8:30. I think I've done some of the life classes. I've done 5 p.m., 6 p.m. So I've done just about every class. And the reason why I've done that is to mix it up for myself,
Mhm.
right? My body performs differently in the afternoons. I'm a morning person. I like to work out in the morning, but I've had some really good workouts in the afternoon by pushing myself to that. I also want to work out with different athletes. I want to be pushed by different athletes. The community aspect is so big. So going out of your comfort zone and working out with someone who's way stronger than you, by that same note, working out with someone who may be way weaker than you. You don't know how well they'll perceive or adapt to working out with you if you're stronger than them. You may be helping that person that's to your right or to your left.
Mhm.
So there's always that. I hate when people look at me and say, oh, well, I can't work out with you because you're going to lift a lot more than me. No, no, no. We're going to lift the same.
Yeah.
Whether there's more weight on the bar or not, we're going to lift the same. I want you working out with me. I want you enjoying your workout with me, because enjoying that workout is really the progress. That's where you're really going to see it.
Yeah.
I've had athletes who have come to the gym after missing a few days because they weren't feeling well. And just by reaching out to them and saying, hey, I miss you at the gym. You should come by. Whatever it is that you're going through, the gym's going to help you feel better. And they come, and all of a sudden they have this incredible workout, right? And it all started from just saying, hey, I miss seeing you at the gym. Then they start being more consistent, and
Mm.
they start seeing that snowball effect from just being at the gym more. And little by little, they are lifting more weight. Little by little, they do get double unders. Little by little, they start doing pull ups. I think, at least in the gyms that I've coached at, getting double unders and getting pull ups are two of the hardest things.
Yeah.
Everyone seems to see the pull up as a unicorn. Double unders we can kind of get in singles and doubles here and then, but getting them consistent is very difficult. But the pull up is really one of those things where people just get really angry when they can't get them, right? So they
Mm.
start pulling out bands and they start trying to come up with all these different ideas. And I've told them all, just be consistent. Put that bar on the rack, do a seating or a seated pull up where you're doing negatives and work on those negatives. And I know it sucks. I know it's boring, but that boring work is where you're going to see the progress. That boring work is where you're going to get those pull-ups. And the few who listen to me do it. You know, you helped me a lot with my front rack because I could not get front racks for my front squats. I couldn't do thrusters. So that's been something I've been working on for what, almost a year now.
Mhm.
And you've helped me out with it a lot. And you've seen me after class go and put the barbell and struggle through it and struggle through it. But again, and this is kind of the reason why the podcast is called Failure is Progress, right?
Yeah.
Because I think we've just come to the realization just how powerful it is to accept failure, to embrace failure, and to know that without it, we're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
So coming to these classes and looking at our programming and saying this programming sucks isn't going to help in any way, shape, or form. Sticking to it and sticking to it as consistently as possible is going to push us way further than saying, "Oh, well, I'd rather do different programming." You know, if we changed our programming tomorrow and decided to go with Mayhem's programming, for example, in 2 or 3 months, people are going to say, "Oh, well, I'm not getting any progress. I'm not getting any stronger. I'm not feeling any better."
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's not the programming.
Yeah.
It's just not the programming, you know? So I think for me, just hearing those words, it's like when people say, you know, "I'll try."
Mm.
Hey, I want you to do this, you know, whatever. I'll try. Don't try. Just do it. Do it and fail. Do it and suck at it. And the more you suck at that one movement, the more you suck at getting handstand push-ups, the more you fall, the better you're going to get. Your body adapts to that failure,
Mhm.
you know. And for me, this whole conversation about the programming, like we saw a couple weeks ago, I think it was the Best Hour of Their Day podcast, which is two level 4 certified CrossFit trainers who have their own podcast. We're talking about, they put up a post where they said, you know, even Mayhem doesn't do Mayhem's programming.
Mhm.
And they started a whole like shitstorm, you know.
Yeah.
They really did.
People were
And
pissed.
it caused a lot of issues, which is kind of funny how that happened. And then I started hearing it, you know, in the gyms as well. And it was kind of eye-opening because at the end of his post, Jason Ackerman actually put like, "By the way, I don't know if this is true or not. I
Yeah.
just put it to, you know, troll people."
Yeah.
But everybody kind of went all in on that. And at the end of the day, it was kind of the same idea. You know, it's not the programming.
Mhm.
It's really not. If you want to see progress in something in specific, you have to figure out what your weakest point is, and you got to fail at it and fail at it and fail at it to
Well, I
start
would
seeing
go
more.
so far even to say that you don't have to figure it out. You have qualified professional coaches that are in class with you. Just ask.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I wholeheartedly believe that anybody that's coaching our CrossFit classes at any of our gyms would be able to help you out in some form or fashion. They may not have all the answers. None of us can know everything, but they would be able to, at the very least, point you in the right direction or get you started with something, get that ball rolling. But after that, you're right, 1,000%. It's up to you to carry that out.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that now because I was talking to Lewis, our head coach over at our Afterburn gym, and I was just kind of vibing with him for a little bit, talking about having him as my coach in the past because he coached me last year in Clermont for a while. And I said to him, you know, I remember you suggested to me a few things. One of them was that I should start eating some white rice. And we were talking about nutrition and diet and fueling for performance. And he was like, "Yeah, if I were you, I would start, you know, adding a little bit of rice because it's going to give you those immediate carbs that you need to fuel through your workout." And I took his advice, and I also took his advice. He said I should get my level 1 certification, which I thought was kind of funny. And he said, "You'd be a great coach," and here I am. So I was talking with him just a few days ago, and I was reminding him of these things, and he's like, "Yeah, I remember." And he said, "It's funny because usually when I give people advice as a coach, they don't take it.
Yeah.
Usually when I say do this or do that, people don't take the advice, and then they end up saying, 'I'm not seeing progress.'"
Yeah.
You know, so it's kind of funny how you say that. We're here to help. That's the whole why we're here. Not only to help, we also care about you.
Yeah.
We really
Like we
want to
want you to
see,
see results.
yeah, 100%. So it's funny you bring that up, man. People don't want to listen, and it's not taking any shots at anyone listening in specific. It's an overall consensus. We obviously don't see everyone this way. I've seen athletes who don't complain and they just show up and they do the work and they do it every day. And I tell those athletes when I see them, man, congratulations, because you really are going for it. You're putting in that work and it's showing. I try my best to see every individual in the room and commend them on their hard effort, no matter what it is. Sometimes you'll have the athletes who know they've been doing it, and then you'll have some like Steven Wetzel, who he's just too humble.
Yeah.
So he'll be like, "Oh yeah, I try."
Yeah.
But he really does bust his ass in the
He
gym.
really does. Yeah.
And he's a hell of an athlete. This is, again, one of those conversations that has been on my mind for a while. So I'm glad we're talking about it. Is there any other thoughts you want to drop in here about programming?
I would like to say that although I don't 100% agree with everything that Level Method does, but I would say that it's a very well thought out program. I think it's done to the best of what sports science has to offer right now. These aren't, for lack of a better phrase, these aren't dumb guys. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
these are people that have degrees and have been doing this for a very long time. So it baffles me sometimes when people are like, "Oh, this program is dumb." It's like, I don't think you understand what programming is. So sometimes my response is, not all the time, because I'm not trying to be a jerk all the time, just special occasions.
Sometimes.
But sometimes when people are like, "Oh, this program sucks," or "This was a bad program," I'm like, "Okay, well, what's a good program?" And like, because me, if you can't tell me what a good program is, you probably don't know what a bad program is.
I can see that.
It's just like, all right, well, let's have this discussion. What do you think a bad program is? And then I'll let you know, like, whether or not that's a bad program.
And at the end of the day, CrossFit is constantly varied functional movement performed at high intensity, right?
Nailed that,
And
bro.
that is
I'm so proud of you right now.
and that is exactly what we're looking at. This programming does change. Me in the year and a half that I've been using Level Method through Sweat Factory, I haven't gotten bored. There are days when I hate workouts more than I did yesterday, but that's just because it's a good workout, right? I'm not bored. And for me, that's probably the biggest key to this whole methodology, is that constant variance of what we're doing, so that I can come to the gym and say, "Oh, I don't have to think about it. I don't want to think about what I'm going to do today. I'm just going to do it and get it over with." And, there's times when, for example, when I was doing the kids classes, I had to come up with workouts, and man, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to sit there and try to think about what my workout is going to look like, exactly how long it should or shouldn't be, what kind of weight each of the athletes should use. The kids programming isn't part of Level Method. Sometimes I could take the Level Method workouts and use one of the lighter scales, but I think it's such a well thought out program. The colors that they use that are derived from like karate or jujitsu, I think is fantastic. It really helps the athlete come into class and not have to go to the coach and say, what scale should I use? What scale should I use? For the most part, we can all look up and say, you know what, this color makes sense for me. It also helps out when you come in and you feel really good and you're like, you know what, I want to push myself. I want to be a purple athlete and I'm a blue athlete. Today I'm going to go for purple, and maybe the workout's going to take a little bit longer, but if you get through it, you're going to see that and you're going to feel that progression. It's a very efficient program, in my opinion. And I think it works really, really well for everyone. I haven't really seen anybody, even though they think so, I haven't seen anybody who hasn't seen progress using this programming.
Yeah.
That's not to say that it's a perfect program. The app is very well thought out. I love the fact that I can go in and high five my fellow athletes. It's also fun for accountability. Whenever I look through there and I see, like, I'll use Jake as an example. When I see Jake do something, I'll write to him and be like, "Man, there's no way you lifted that much," and we can just kind of mess with each other. There's times when you post things and I'm like, "Bro, you did it that fast. Holy hell." Right. So it's kind of fun and it helps build that camaraderie. I can go to any of our 4 gyms and post my times and you can see them. And it, again, it just helps with that accountability. So I really enjoy it. I really appreciate it. I don't think that there is, you know, looking at the entirety of what CrossFit is and with all these different programs that have come out, I don't think there's a bad one.
Right.
I don't think there's a bad one.
I think James Holbar said it. Like CrossFit, even done poorly, is still very effective.
That is very
Um,
true.
so it's just like when we are talking about programming, there's not a whole lot of things that you can say negative, even if you're doing CrossFit poorly. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of gyms out there that have strength plus Metcon every single day. And a lot of people like that because they quote unquote get more workout. You're getting less coaching. I'm not sure if you guys realize that, but
Yeah.
people like the feeling of getting more workout. You know, you do your strength work and then your Metcon afterwards. But if you do strength plus Metcon every day, that's not technically constantly varied. So at that point, you're doing quote unquote CrossFit, just not very well. But people have gotten extremely fit off of that model.
Right. And that's why we do have days like we had today. You were mentioning the single arm dumbbell thrusters with the burpees and the run. There wasn't a strength portion at the beginning of the class. There was actually accessory work after class, which is something that a lot of people skip out on, right?
Yeah.
Um, it's very important. And, they picked a great day to say, you know what, yesterday we had strength work and we had a smaller Metcon. Today we have a larger Metcon, and then we'll put some accessory work. It's that variance that keeps us and keeps our bodies from going into plateau,
Mm-hmm.
which is so crucial. For so many years, all I did was go to the gym and, 3 days a week. It was back and biceps and then chest and triceps and then legs. And it gets boring. It gets really boring. There's no chance to get boring or to get bored doing these workouts. So yeah, man, I think we've drilled it home. We think this is effective programming. If anyone does have any issues with our programming, feel free to let us know. But
I would love to
again,
have that conversation. Please email me directly.
again, it comes down to self accountability. Really, really reflect on yourself and look in the mirror and say, is it really the programming that I have to blame for this, or is it my effort? Am I not scaling up when I should? Am I not trying to go heavier whenever we are doing our strength portions? Am I not taking advantage of the progressions to learn how to properly clean and snatch and jerk? Am I not trying to get upside down on those days when we have our handstand push-ups? It's okay if you don't do it in the workout, but during the practice and during the progressions, go for it.
I mean, I could talk about this all day. So, one thing that I did want to mention, though, I guess two things, is like you were saying about the accountability. Two things with that accountability is one, like make sure you know what your goals are. Like if you're complaining about programming, but you don't know why you're doing the programming, then yeah, the programming isn't good for you. Because no program is good for you until you know why you're doing the program. If you want to get stronger and you're doing a program that isn't focused on that, then yeah, that program doesn't work for you. But if you have no goals at all, then it doesn't really matter what programming you're doing. So first establish your goals, and then make sure that the people that are coaching you, the coaches, know what your goals are. Because once I understood one of our athletes and what her goals were, it made coaching a lot easier because I could tailor the workouts regardless of what they were to what she actually needed so that she could feel like she got the best workout for her. So make sure that you have that understanding with your coach of what your goals are, and make sure that you establish your goals, because without those two things, it makes it really hard for you to see positivity in any programming.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. Most of the athletes that walk into our gyms are looking for two things. They're looking to drop weight or drop fat, and they're looking to get toned. It's almost like a script, right? And we love that. At the end of the day, there's very few people who are walking into our gyms who are saying, well, I want to get into competing for CrossFit and I want to be, the fittest person on earth. I don't think anybody has ever walked into one of our gyms and said that. So keeping that in mind and looking at what it is that we're doing, if you are consistent and you watch your nutrition at home and you hold yourself accountable, there's no reason for you to not lose weight, drop fat, and be stronger and, get toned. It happens. CrossFit is world renowned for people getting ridiculous body recomposition because they start doing this. And if you just do it consistently enough, it's kind of a byproduct. You're going to get stronger, you're going to get fitter. And by the way, you're probably going to lose weight because it's just going to happen. We have a lot of athletes who, they still don't give up on their drinking and they still don't give up on eating pretty bad and they still get results.
Yeah.
Right. So again, it's really down to being self-accountable and watching what you eat and being consistent in the gym.
And that also brings up another point. Make sure that you understand all the factors of health and fitness, and for this particular conversation, the factors of progress. If you're only looking at one factor to get you progress, you're probably not going to make progress. So in this particular instance, we're talking about programming. So if you're only looking at your programming to get you stronger, but then you're doing your workouts fasted, you're probably not going to get stronger, even if you have the perfect strength program out there. Let's say you're dehydrated, you're working out in the mornings and you just wake up and go straight to the gym and do your workouts. And then 3 months later, you're like, oh man, I'm not getting any stronger. Well, you probably need to have something to eat.
Was that a shot at me?
No, not directly, indirectly. No. No, we probably need to look at all those other factors before we start saying that the programming isn't working. If you're taking care of every other factor in your life and still not seeing results, then maybe dive into programming. But programming is probably the last thing that you should be looking at before you even start to say that you're not making progress.
Understood. All right, man.
I think we can end it for real this time.
I really don't know what else there is to say. In a nutshell, it comes down to everything we've talked about here. But really, I think all of our athletes are doing fantastic jobs. And I think that they really do come in and with the right attitude, kill these workouts.
Yeah.
It may seem sometimes like the workouts are easy for them, and sometimes they feel a lot harder, and that's exactly what it's supposed to look like. I think we've got a great onset look as to what our programming is like, and if you really pay attention to it and look at all of your assessments and you look at everything that you have on your color board, it could be seen as a little corny, right? But at the end of the day, using myself as an example, when I started, everything was yellow. And little by little, focusing on those assessments and putting in the extra work after class to try to boost those assessments, I've been able to get myself up further and further. And it does make you feel better. It does make you feel not just that you are getting progress, but that you're here for the right reasons and you're doing the work that you're supposed to be doing. We don't have, quote unquote budget memberships. This is something that I'm investing money in to be a part of as an athlete, as a CrossFit athlete. So, it's a value to me to be able to come in and do this. If I'm investing my money to come to the gym and I'm not putting in all my effort, it's just like going to college and not showing up to class 3 days, out of 4 and not doing the studying and not doing the homework. Well, guess what? You're not going to graduate, and you're definitely not going to graduate with good grades.
Yeah.
It's the same difference. So, just being in there and putting in all that effort is really important. I think our athletes, for the most part, are doing that, and it's definitely fun to watch and see those level ups on the Facebook pages. The athletes are rewarded, so to speak, for doing that. All right, man, this is it for this one.
Yes, sir. 10 of them in the books. We hit double digits, bro.
10 podcasts. Yes, sir. And just like yesterday, we were thinking about doing this. All right, we'll catch you guys on the next one. Again, if you guys have any questions on anything that we talk about in the podcast, and in this case specifically on programming, feel free to reach out to Keith and he'll answer any of your questions. Thank you guys for listening. Make sure you like and subscribe our podcast wherever it is you're listening to, and we'll catch you on the next one.